Hello guys, welcome back to another Sendrith video, and today we're going to be talking about Daybreak's response to the THJ response to their Injunction. And in the background here we have some Lucklin grouping video going on. You see Morpheine drip, that is Miisty on his 55, soon to be 56 cleric, and I've got Mianna level 60. At this point I think she's got 3 AAs, or 2 AAs about to get to 3. Or 3 AAs about to get to 4. I can't remember which one. I finally figured out how to talk in Discord and not record the audio from that, so I can just have some background footage here. So anyway, I don't want to talk too much about that, but that's what you're going to be seeing in the background here while I read the response from Daybreak. And I'm debating right now at this very moment whether or not to portray the response or to simply read it and let you watch the gameplay. The advantage of portraying it is twofold. First of all, you can read along with me yourself, and you don't see the gameplay, which helps you focus on it. But the same advantages are the downsides. You don't get to see the gameplay. But I'm also worried if you're looking at the gameplay, which is so awesome, you ain't gonna hear what I'm saying. What a conundrum. I'm going to give you the gameplay, and I think more than half of you are probably not even looking at the actual video footage. Anyway, let's just read. I'm just going to read it. That's all we're doing here for start, reading it and sharing my opinion. Let me hide that for you. There we go. Alright, so hopefully I don't have to summarize what THJ said. I think a lot of your memory will be jogged as we go through it. Okay. Introduction. I almost want to read it in like a southern lawyer's voice. Defendants want this court to believe... Well, never mind, I can't do it. Defendants want this court to believe that they are, quote, just another not-for-profit emulator, end quote. In fact, defendants have created an unauthorized, infringing derivative work that is a blatant ripoff of Everquest and have set up a competing business which steals customers and exploits defendants' intellectual property without paying for its development costs. Defendants know that the cost of developing a video game like Everquest is, quote, is usually in excess of 60 million, in some cases running in excess of 250 million, end quote. Carlson declaration. I don't know if that's somebody from THJ who actually said that and that's why they're quoting it, or if it's somebody else, because they do say defendants know. It would logically follow that they would quote the defendants, proving that they know, but they might just say defendants know because they happen to work in the gaming industry. Let me take a quick second here to make sure that the gameplay audio is not too loud. Okay, turn it down just a wee bit. So right here we're in this place, I think it's called Fungus Grove, and we're going to be killing some insects. And at first XP is horrible, but then we get to this camp with some level 60 mobs that are warriors, and they're actually pretty easy to kill, and the XP starts to ramp up, but that's like an hour and a half in. But we had fun. Alright, back to the response. Defendants also want this court to believe that Daybreak has sat idly by and allowed other emulators to thrive, quote, without taking any action to stop the alleged intellectual property infringement, end quote. This assertion is false. In fact, while Daybreak loves its true fans, some of whom enjoy creating private copies of the original version of Everquest, colloquially emulators, Daybreak has never stated or implied that any emulator can operate without authorization. In that spirit, Daybreak has authorized 2 popular emulators, Project 1999, P99, and Project Quarm, to operate subject to important written restrictions. It's gutted. These restrictions include, as a matter of illustration, that the emulators remain personal fan projects that emulate only the early version of Everquest, with no changes to gameplay, and a prohibition on sales of anything, as the former lead of the Everquest development team, Holly Longdale, succinctly stated in a 2019 article, the quote, the Project 1999 guys are not malicious or trying to steal our money. Gameplay music is taken off, I gotta crank it down. Jeez. They gotta fix that, the music randomly gets louder. Indeed, defendants do not, as they cannot, identify a single revenue-generating emulator authorized by Daybreak. Conversely, defendants systematically modified Daybreak's copyrighted material to offer a competing revenue-generating company that entirely relies upon Daybreak's intellectual property. The THJ universe, see, look at the music just totally took a dip. You hear that? It's so crazy. Conversely, defendants systematically modified Daybreak's copyrighted material to offer a competing revenue-generating company that entirely relies upon Daybreak's intellectual property. The THJ universe that defendants are marketing as their own is in, and this is italicized in bold, these following two words, exact replica of EverQuest's iconic characters, settings, narratives, and other unique characteristics. That's like that's the hammer on the nail right there, with all the reverse engineering the code and whatnot. We all can see it is Norath. It is the same classes, the same races, the same mobs. Everything's got the same names, the exact same models, the exact same shapes and designs and looks. Anyway. Defendants have also made every attempt to steal Daybreak's customers by giving them an unauthorized, quote, God mode, end quote, version of the game that allows players to burn through content at an unhealthy pace. Interesting, unhealthy there. While they pretend to give, quote, gifts in return for, quote, donations. These are in fact sales transactions for virtual items called Echoes of Memory, EOM, that generate significant revenue for defendants. In March 2025, after starting their illicit business without authorization from Daybreak, defendants engaged their defense counsel to send an email to Daybreak's general counsel seeking a, quote, marketing collaboration, end quote, while failing to identify anything about an emulator, Everquest, THJ, defendants, or a single detail that might be a tip-off. In other words, they sent an email trying to collaborate with Daybreak without actually saying that they're doing any of these things. And why is that important? Well, let's continue. Defendants have always been aware that their actions violate Daybreak's intellectual property. That's why it's important, because they purposely avoided mentioning any of those things, knowing that they're violating Daybreak's intellectual property and not wanting to put themselves in a legally precarious situation to give evidence to Daybreak that could be used against them. For example, on July 17th, 2025, after Daybreak sought injunctive relief, that's when they sought to shut down THJ immediately, defendant Takahashi stated during a public livestream that he hoped the outcome of this litigation would be that defendants would get a, quote, license, end quote. As set forth herein, Daybreak has established the likelihood of success because defendants have admitted to, inter alia, copyright infringement. By this statement of needing a license, they admit to knowing that they are participating in copyright infringement. Makes sense. Moreover, Daybreak established in its underlying brief that it will suffer irreparable harm if the defendants are not preliminary enjoined, if they are not forced to stop now. Worsening matters, it has become clear through defendants' opposition and an accounting of defendants' illicit profits that redacted, that part is taken out. The rest of that sentence. Defendants also admit in their papers that THJ has, quote, accumulated approximately 22,600 unique users, end quote, from its launch through July 1st, 2025. Daybreak respectfully submits that this court must step in now and put a stop to this ongoing and catastrophic harm caused by defendants. Without an injunction, Daybreak will continue to suffer irreparable damage to its business and goodwill. The stakes for the real Everquest game and the development team that support it could not be higher. Without preliminary injunctive relief from this court, the future of Everquest and the livelihoods of the people who operate the game are in peril. And now we get to part 2. That was the introduction. Part 2, the argument. And this is we could call it the counter argument, because this is all to counter what we heard in THJ's initial response. A. Equitable estoppel fails to shield defendants from liability. Equitable estoppel does not apply where a defendant relies on the plaintiff's purported conduct towards other, unrelated, dissimilarly situated third parties. So this is in reference to THJ's saying, look, for 20 so years they allowed all these emulators to work. They set kind of a precedent that it was okay to run an emulator. And Daybreak's some sort of that has no legal binding at all. And unrelated, dissimilarly situated third parties means those servers are not related to you, nor are they actually all that similar to you. You're doing something very different. Let's continue. Daybreak's behavior with and towards third parties is irrelevant As seen in the case Metro Goldwyn Mayer Studios Incorporated versus Grokster Limited, there is, quote, no rule in copyright that a copyright holder is bound to pursue either all infringers or none at all, end quote. So the point is, it doesn't matter. And that was legally, there's a precedent. A precedent is when a decision is made in the courts prior that relates to the situation. And that's called a precedent. If the decision is already made, the precedent must be followed, even though this is a different judge and that the one who made this ruling before is a different judge. It doesn't matter unless this new judge can show some flaw in the reasoning of the previous judge, or this situation has some unique dimension that would require a change in the decision. Precedent must be followed, and the precedent is that, again, no rule in copyright. There is no rule in copyright that a copyright holder is bound to pursue either all infringers or none at all. So there's no rule that just because they didn't go after other emulators for 20 years, or they're not going after Project Quarm or whatever, that therefore they cannot go after THJ. Continuing now. In any event, THJ does not operate like other authorized Everquest projects. Daybreak entered into written agreements with P99 and Project Quarm, setting forth detailed restrictions. Reply Chan Declaration. Defendants acknowledge, this is another quote-unquote source, as Goldfish likes to call them, acknowledge that Daybreak's written agreement with P99 establishes guidelines. Specifically, both P99 and Project Quarm operate subject to agreements containing important restrictions set by Daybreak. E.g., they remain personal fan projects, emulating only the early version of the Everquest, offer no changes to gameplay, and provide no sales outlets. Defendants were aware of P99's contractual restrictions. They were aware of these restrictions, and were specifically warned by the developer of P99 that you, quote, you could get in trouble, end quote, for THJ's commercial activities. Unlike P99 and Project Quarm, THJ changes gameplay and generates revenue at Daybreak's expense. Defendants acknowledge this critical difference with P99. So one of the things I heard recently, for the few minutes that I did watch Gymnastic Goldfish's video, it's still talking about Quarm and secrets somehow, and calling her like a traitor who like rolled over on THJ. The traitor here is the EQ emulator that started to make money with in-game real money trading. That is the traitor. And anybody who has actually cared at all about the EQ community and was EQ emulator community, specifically the EQ emulator community, who was part of that community and understood it, knows that. But I think people like Gymnastic Goldfish, they just will see everything through the THJ tinted lenses. What is the perspective that, makes anybody who causes any detriment to THJ or its situation, makes them appear to be of low character or having done something wrong, and makes everything that THJ does, whether it's real money trading to make tens of thousands of dollars a month, or whatever they do is right. Like, that's, what's that called? Conflict of interest or a bias? Yeah, whatever. So that's part A. Part B. Daybreak did not delay and Locks is inapplicable. So one of the things was, why did Daybreak wait so long to come after us? Because THJ was operating for about a year. Well, in legal terms, that's not that long for a move like this. Because there's a period of time to realize that you need to make a legal move, and then there's B, a period of time to prepare and to accumulate evidence for said legal move. And so 9 months is really not that slow. But let's read it. Defendants' delay arguments rests precariously on a single vague email sent to Daybreak's private officer's mailbox on December 12th of 2024. The anonymous email, parentheses, which does not mention THJ or defendants' names or pseudonyms, was automatically diverted to the recipient's junk email folder at the time it was sent, and was not discovered until after this litigation was initiated. Who knows if that's actually true, right? In the preliminary injunction context, courts in this circuit, quote, are loath to withhold relief solely because of delay, which, subquote, another quote inside of the quote, is not particularly probative in the context of ongoing worsening injuries, end of both quotes. This is Disney versus some other VidAngel corporation. I feel like the game's getting louder again. Let me make sure. Yeah, it's getting pretty loud. Let me turn it down here. There we go. So, just because the point is that just because there was any like regardless of whether the delay is really that long or not, delay is no reason to not stop the worsening of injuries now. The same holds true for Daybreak's, continuing now, I'm sorry, I'm trying to be more clear about when I'm talking and when I'm reading. The same holds true for Daybreak's unfair competition claims. See another precedent ruling, Sun Earth Incorporated versus Sun Earth Solar Power Company. Regardless, Daybreak promptly brought this action within 3 months after it learned of the true scope of the defendant's infringement, which is shorter than any time identified in defendant's case law. C. Daybreak established a likelihood of success on the merits. THJ only exists by defendants' unlawful repurposing and exploiting of Daybreak's protected works. Poof. Defendants modified Daybreak's copyright-protected code, infringe Everquest's non-literal elements, for example, characters and Norath itself, and generate funds from THJ as a result of their infringement. I'm finding this lawyer to be much more succinct and clear in his writing, and because his ground is so solid, he can state only the solid arguments. Because if you were like desperate, you could reach for all these various little convoluted, lines of reasoning, which is what THJ has to do, even knowing that they don't really hold water legally through precedent. You gotta make some argument, right? But Daybreak's on solid ground, so these arguments, they have that feeling of solidity, and they're very clearly reinforced by direct quotes from previous cases, not just referencing some little idea. Number 1. Defendants infringe Daybreak's copyright. So software contains, quote, contains 3 distinct layers of content: literal elements, individual non-literal elements, and dynamic non-literal elements. All 3 are works of authorship that can merit copyright protection, end quote. And of course, there's another case law source there for where this quote comes from. As detailed below, THJ infringes on all 3 layers of Everquest. Number 1, source code. Number 2, individual non-literal elements. For example, individual audiovisual components such as the iconic Everquest characters. And number 3, dynamic non-literal elements. For example, the real-time experience of traveling through different worlds, hearing their sounds, viewing their structures, encountering their inhabitants and monsters, and encountering other players. Another sub thing here. Defendants infringe Everquest literal elements. I think we got that. Let's move along here. Well, let me briefly look through for any important points here. Defendants committed copyright infringement by modifying Daybreak's copyrighted files to create THJ. Defendants even acknowledged that they modified Daybreak's files, i.e. committed infringement, while they describe it as rudimentary. It is anything but. Even a small amount of modification or copying constitutes infringement. And then another case is cited. Defendants claim that a majority of their modified files do not contain protected expression. This argument fails. First, runtime files are still protected by copyright. Not sure what those are. Further, runtime files contain compiled object code and proprietary data, authorized by Daybreak, and they control how the client operates at runtime. Oh, okay, okay. THJ modifies and replaces these runtime files to alter the execution behavior of the Everquest client, enabling unauthorized access and display of Daybreak's copyrighted content. Defendants failed to address their other unlawful acts of modification, including adding and deleting files. B. Defendants infringe Everquest's non-literal elements. Defendants infringe Daybreak's individual and dynamic non-literal elements. Copyright law considers these protected expression, separate from the literal source code itself. Okay. Without these, THJ would not exist. There would be no characters, no Norath, no game, no players. See, for example, Takahashi Declaration. Oh, interesting. So a lot of the sourcing is coming from Or like they talk about another document from THJ to say what they're replying to. They give the source so the judge can look at what they're replying to. Defendants cite no authority for their argument that THJ's use of Daybreak's non-literal elements does not constitute copyright infringement. They don't cite any authority. They say some reasoning, but there's no citing of authority, previous precedent, or a law, right? THJ is not independently developed. It modifies Daybreak's protected files to display proprietary game assets without authorization. Moreover, THJ's modifications to Everquest and new storylines constitute unauthorized derivative works. More case precedent sourced here. Okay, C. Defendants cannot rely on fair use as a defense. Okay, this sounds like an important one because this is the one that all the THJ lovers are always going to, right? Oh, fair use, fair use. And then whenever they say that, I see like some commenter on YouTube who's like, he's taking a clip from another YouTube video of an interview, like, and then he's talking about his comments on what's happening in the interview, right? And it seems like they think that means that they can take the game EverQuest and, oh, we'll just make it our own game a little bit because we changed it. It's so like counterintuitive, like because we changed it, it's okay. It's like, what? All right. Okay, defendants cannot rely on fair use as a defense. The fair use doctrine does not apply here. Defendant's purpose in modifying EverQuest's code was not to, quote, study its functional requirements, end quote, but to create a derivative, i.e. not an entirely new work. And then another case is quoted here, Sega Enters versus Accolade Incorporated. Nor was defendant's use, quote, consistent with that creative progress that is the basic constitutional objective of copyright itself, end quote, Google versus Oracle. Defendants' modifications were, quote, an excuse to exploit commercially or otherwise misappropriate protected expression, end quote. Atari Games versus Nintendo of America Incorporated. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Circa 1992. I didn't know Atari sued Nintendo. Wow, okay. Number 2, defendants violated the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the DMCA. Defendants claim that THJ does not, quote, attempt to connect to Daybreak servers, end quote. The EverQuest client, the program installed on a user's computer, is designed to communicate with Daybreak's authentication servers to verify a user's credentials before gameplay can begin. Without that connection, the game remains locked and unusable. Okay. This is like, I couldn't even believe that THJ's response was saying, well, we didn't connect to your servers, like that was going to help them. And this is exactly what I would have said in return, like, what? Yeah, because you hacked them so they would not connect to our servers, so you could circumvent our authentication process so you could use it illegally. Okay, back to reading. THJ's installer modifies the EverQuest client to redirect authentication requests to an unauthorized third-party server. This redirection disables Daybreak's access control system and enables users to launch and play EverQuest without any communication with Daybreak's infrastructure. In doing so, THJ circumvents the technological measures that control access to Daybreak's copyrighted game environment, violating DMCA's prohibition against circumvention. Just like so much more clear wording, from this lawyer. 3. Defendants commit unfair competition. A. Defendants violated Section 43 of the Lanham Act. Defendants do not mention critical factors and then another case is cited. Nevertheless, the court need not engage in a prong-by-prong analysis of those factors because defendants admit to directly copying EverQuests. And then he cites a case why you don't have to worry about prong-by-prong when the defendants admit this. Always sourcing precedent to validify everything he's saying here. Defendants do not argue that there are any minor, let alone major differences between THJ and EQ's protected trade dress. So you see, he's saying THJ did not argue that there are any minor, let alone major differences between THJ and EQ's protected trade dress. Therefore, plaintiffs have demonstrated that it is likely to succeed on its trade dress infringement claim. So they didn't say we didn't take your trade dress. I think that's like the models and everything, the look of the game. And so it looks like that it's almost like an admission when you don't defend against it, right? Okay. UCL claims. The UCL's coverage is sweeping and enables courts to remedy wrongful business conduct in whatever context such activity might occur. I'm not sure what we're talking about here. Let's see if it reveals itself as we go. As set forth in the reply Chan declaration, defendants' conduct, quote, significantly threatens or harms competition, end quote. Daybreak demonstrated a likelihood of success on its UCL claim because defendants have, minimally and in bad faith, number 1, created, operated, and promoted THJ, and 2, established a sophisticated sales and revenue model while falsely calling it a, quote, donation, end quote, system. Defendants' illegal conduct allows and encourages consumers to utilize THJ while diverting them away from Everquest. And in Goldfish's most recent video, he said, THJ didn't divert anyone from Everquest. They were diverted from Everquest because Daybreak's doing such a bad job of managing. Well, let me, as an English teacher, help inform you of what divert means, okay? Divert is when a particular way is closed off or maybe undesirable, and you come and you say, hey, go this way. Like, for example, you're driving on the freeway, it's closed off because they're cleaning it. But then there's all these cones and arrows that are pointing you to get off on this freeway exit. You go off, and then there's more arrows and signs that direct you through a series of side streets, and then finally back onto the highway. See, that's called diversion. This is diverting, okay? So people going to Daybreak and then not liking it anymore and going away is not diversion. Somebody going near Daybreak and trying to grab people who are who have any room or appetite to even try another version of Everquest, this is called diversion. Say, hey, come over here, and come over to this Everquest. This one's free, by the way, and it's kind of cool because it lets you do this, that, and the other thing. So that's what diversion means. So again, I said this before, Daybreak not doing a great job, and it's not Daybreak's not doing a good job or THJ still in the players. It's both. And the fact that Daybreak's not doing a good job does not therefore exonerate THJ taking players from them. Alright. Number 4, defendants breached the Everquest EULA. Defendants concede that they breached the Everquest EULA. To the extent defendants claim that they were induced by Daybreak to breach the contract, this simply repackages their meritless equitable estoppel argument. They were induced by Daybreak to breach the contract. What? That's all he even has to say about that. That's it. D. Without preliminary relief, Daybreak will be irreparably harmed. First, as discussed above, the timing of Daybreak's motion does not bar equitable relief, as defendants have not established extraordinary circumstances. What does that mean? As discussed, the timing of Daybreak's motion does not bar equitable relief, as defendants have not established extraordinary circumstances. There's no special reason why they should not be able to shut down the server now, I guess. Second, the evidence demonstrates that Everquest's decline corresponds directly with THJ's launch. The alleged contradictions identified by defendants are red herrings. For example, defendant Taylor concedes that THJ has, quote, accumulated approximately 22,600 unique users, end quote, from its launch through July 1st, 2025. Further, the cherry-picked excerpts from the EG7 presentations do not support defendants' claims. Defendants incorrectly argue that EG7's quarterly reports were inconsistent and that Everquest's numbers declined in June 2025, not due to direct competition from THJ, but because Daybreak's Fanebreak server launched in May 2025 and it was poorly received. In fact, EG7 reported a decline for Everquest in Q1 of 2025, although at that time, Daybreak was not yet aware of the effect that THJ was having on Everquest's performance. Moreover, there is substantial evidence that Fanebreaker was well received at launch in late May 2025, but by that time THJ had positioned itself as a direct competitor of Everquest, with the most viewed YouTube video about Fanebreaker entitled Everquest 2025, Fanebreaker TLP versus Hero's Journey, which server should you play? And this is a real linchpin for their case. I think this is going to hit the judge pretty hard, like, oh wow, there was a YouTube video which was specifically saying, should you play the authorized company's version or should you go play this other illegal emulator. With a video out there like that being the most popular video about that server on the internet, it's going to be pretty hard to argue that none of the players, or like not a significant number of the people who left Everquest were going to THJ. Back to reading. Third, the evidence shows myriad irreparable harm to Daybreak as a result of defendants' bad acts. THJ's infringing activity threatens the very existence of Everquest and cannot be remedied by monetary damages. This is exactly the kind of irreparable harm that courts issue preliminary injunctions to address. So I think what they're saying here is that Everquest is in a precarious situation where it's almost not even generating enough revenue to warrant being supported by Daybreak anymore, right? And so it's not just that we need to get paid some money, it's that you need to shut down, and so at least some of the users come back. I know that the comments we all see, everybody's like, I'm never going back to Daybreak no matter what, but I think we all know on the internet it's a big vocal minority that we hear shouting loudly, and I'm pretty sure it's Evercrack. So people are gonna, maybe it'll take like a 6 months to a year off, but eventually they're gonna want to play Everquest again. And then some of them are gonna go to live, some of them might go to Quarm, whatever. This is exactly the kind of irreparable harm that courts issue preliminary injunctions to address. For example, then he quotes another case. The court noted that, quote, a major disruption of business can be as harmful as its termination, and thereby constitutes irreparable injury, end quote, and that, quote, significant damages still may constitute irreparable injury if the business is threatened, end quote. Okay, whatever. The balance of equities and public interests favor Daybreak. Defendants acknowledge that the cost of developing a video game like Everquest is, quote, usually in excess of $60 million, and in some cases running in excess of $250 million, end quote. Here, the balance of equities favors Daybreak. Daybreak spent millions in 25 years in developing Everquest, whereas defendants illegally stole Everquest's assets wholesale. Wholesale, I like that. In intellectual property cases, there is a public interest in upholding the protections afforded by copyright law. For those of you who don't know what that is, the public interest is, if we do not uphold copyright law, why is anybody going to make anything? It takes so much work and resources and money to make a wonderful game, and if we let people just rip games off, then who's going to spend the time and the resources to make new cool games? So it's in the public interest to uphold copyright law. That's what he's saying. Moreover, any supposed, quote, harm, end quote, to the public interest if THJ to the public harm to the public interest if THJ were enjoined is not cognizable where THJ is built on blatant infringement and unfair competition. A defendant who knowingly infringes another's copyright, quote, cannot complain of the harm that will befall it when properly forced to desist from its infringing activities, end quote. So this is like, obviously you cannot say like, well, the people will be upset and they'll lose something if you make us stop doing our illegal. That's like a drug dealer being like, but the people need these drugs. That might even be true. It might even be true. Like some guy dealing some weed, right? But he's dealing it to people who are like in terminal illness. This is back when weed is illegal, right? So people who have terminal illnesses, this is really helping them. Even some diseases, I think like Parkinson's, it actually makes the symptoms recede. And that's wonderful, and the law needs to be changed to accommodate that. But while the law is as it is, that does not matter. And in this case, yeah, you cannot complain about the harm that will befall the community you've created when you are properly forced to desist from your infringing activities. Daybreak correctly sued defendants Takahashi and Taylor. The law is clear that, quote, officers and directors are personally liable if they are the guiding spirit behind the infringement, end quote. This is Dish Network LLC versus Jadu TV Incorporated. A quote from that case. Defendant Takahashi admits that he developed THJ, and Taylor confirms that he partnered, quote, end quote, with Takahashi to, quote, to create THJ, end quote. Conclusion. For the foregoing reasons, Daybreak respectfully requests that the court enter a preliminary injunction in the form set forth in Daybreak's proposed order. Finished. This document is much short. I read through the entire document, and it took me less time than it did for me to read through a third and comment a little bit of THJ's response. So much more succinct, so much more clear. And also reaffirming, because when you hear a bunch of crazy arguments, it's like, am I missing something? Like, is my logic off? But then Daybreak's like, no, Daybreak keeps it clear. And all of the, the self-evident like problems with THJ's argument, Daybreak highlights them. They are common sense and provides source code, prior rulings in previous cases, aka precedent, to support, with direct quotes. So I really feel like, aside from my personal stake in the matter, just looking at the wording and the strength of the arguments in the document, this was a beautiful response. I feel like the lawyers are doing a better job for Daybreak. Now I also feel like their job is much easier. They don't have to, stretch as much to make their case. But yeah. There's the response. I guess we'll see what happens. Let's take a few minutes to see what's going on in Everquest now. See, we still haven't even gotten to the camp that we're heading to with the big level 60s yet. I recorded for about an hour. I think we're getting close now. We're getting close. But I had a level 53 pet, 53 warrior, which is the maximum level that you can charm with Bull Transit Ghastry. It's the maximum level you can charm without Dictate. So it's basically the maximum level you can charm, because Dictate's only a 1-minute spell. It's not really like a charming plan for a group grind, So it was kind of rough. And later on, I started giving him Augment too. It's pretty ballsy. But we had a Druid and a Cleric, so Miisty was doing a great job of stunning the mobs when they attacked me. Very helpful. And keeping me alive. She was I can't say she because Morphine's a girl. I like to do that. I like to be more do a little bit of roleplay, not 100%, but 30-40% roleplay. She did a great job keeping me alive. My sister here, my dark sister. So I actually did not die, finally, in this one. And it was interesting going in this stinky bug hole, and I wasn't sure what we were here for, especially because XP was really not great, you guys, on all these mobs that you're seeing here. But then when we started killing the level 60s, because if you don't know this, I don't know if it's just Quarm or if this is how it always was, but I think it might just be Quarm. There's a mechanic they put in, whereas if you're killing mobs that are within 5 levels of you get bonus AA experience. So once we got to killing the level 60s, first, the level 60s are level 60s. They're like 6 or 7 levels, 8 or 9 levels higher than the other mobs. So you're getting more XP for that reason. And they don't take that much longer to kill, really. So XP starts to flow faster there, and then you add the bonus in there. And yeah, so the whole time we were going there, I was telling Miisty, this XP is balls, man. Because it was it really was. I mean, in Vexar, you can get an AA every hour and 10 minutes, sometimes less if you're at the right camp. Here, I think we spent an hour and a half getting down there, and I think I got 30% of an AA in that time. So I was like, this is horrible. But then when we actually got to the camp, we were there for 40 minutes, and I got 60% or 70 in that 40 minutes. So I'm like, now we're talking, There was actually an enchanter there soloing when we got there. It was crazy. So I guess that's a spot you could consider. I don't know if you can get down here with Invis. I feel like you can't. Because when we were coming in, the bard's like, well, I'm KOS because I've been here before. I was not KOS. They were indifferent to me. But the bard's like, I've been here before. I'm KOS, so we got to fight our way in. Now, if you could just Invis through, he wouldn't have said that. So they must have see Invis, if not maybe all of them see Invis. They are insects, right? Insects have other different senses, so it makes sense lore-wise that they would see through invisibility. Yeah. So that Forager, another weird thing about, this is Miisty giving me a familiar spell that dropped from my wizard if he ever gets that high. Another weird thing about EverQuest is sometimes you have mobs that are like workers, like miners and foragers, and they're a higher level than the soldiers. So the soldiers are level 51 warriors, and the forager here is level 53 warrior. It's interesting. Now, even though these guys were higher than the usual fare, even like the level 60s, it was amazing how easy it was to land spells on them. Never a mes resist. I was even on the level 60s even. White cons to me, I landed all my slows except for one. I only remember one resist without any tash. Now, granted, I stopped slowing because I was having mana trouble with charm breaks and mezzing, and Miisty was like rocking. I think she had a KEI, so she was really flowing. So she always had like full mana. So I'm like, you know what? And I kept getting aggro. Like every time I slowed, we had this warrior that you can see her right there, Marshall Hillary Clinton. And even though she's a marshal, she was doing like, no offense if you're watching this, but it might just be how it is for warriors. But it felt like she was not even hitting taunt, because it was like no matter what, I would wait till the mob was like down to like 80% HP, and I would just cast slow, not even tash, and I get aggro. Now that I'm thinking about it, it might be because I had such a strong pet, because I think a portion of that pet's aggro is going to the enchanter, and if my pet's doing more DPS than usual in this group, because usually I have like a 50 or lower pet, right, like 48, 49, 50, and now I've got a 53 pet dual wielding with haste, so maybe it's because of the damage the pet's doing that I'm getting so much aggro. But it's just like every single mob couldn't not get aggro. But it was fun. I like it when it's a little interesting, you know. Well, I'm debating whether to keep talking so we can see the royals that we finally get to in this camp. They're the same models of these guys, they're just bigger. So there's a little stun action because I got aggro. You see that? I'm getting hit all the time, and I can't sit down. But I try. After a minute or two, I try sit down, and 50-50. See, this time I got lucky, but other times he'll start running after me, even though I wait like 30 seconds standing up, and it's like, Jesus. Yeah, it can't be. It must be the pet doing a lot of damage. But it's alright, you know, these guys didn't seem to crush me too much. I was okay. A couple pet breaks. One pet break got really close because I got interrupted trying to cast my color stun like 3 or 4 times. But aside from that, usually ended up with more than 50% HP, at least, sometimes 90% HP after charm breaks. In the beginning, I started with I was using Berserker. Was that Berserker Spirit, the 5-minute rune that's cost no reagents, and I also started with a rune 5. But then I'm like, yeah, I got a cleric and a druid. I shouldn't have to use this stuff. So here's one of the big ones. Here we go. See, he's a white con, and he's huge. He's a warrior, and then we get to these royal somethings that are the same level, basically the same thing, but they drop these chitin belts, and almost everyone got one except for me. My dice were rolling so badly during this group. It was horrible. But the belt wasn't that great. I think I could have given it to an alt, but whatever. Yeah. So feel free to share you guys' thoughts. Even if your thoughts are, you know, contradictory to mine, or you have some anger or frustration to express, as long as you, I want to say do it respectfully, but I almost just want to say as long as you do it logically. You don't even have to be all that respectful. Just don't just be an asshole for the sake of being an asshole. There's a charm break. See, look, here I'm getting interrupted. Here it is. This was one of the ones that scared me, I think. Look at that, 18%. I got interrupted like so many times, but then finally, because Miisty stunned him, saved my life. Then she healed me twice right quick. So a couple close calls like that. But yeah, even if you like, you know, dude, you know, you're wrong because this is that and that is this. Like, share your argument. Don't just be like, you fucking douchebag, you know. You're just gonna make a fool of yourself like that, to be honest. Like, I got nothing against THJ. I was a little ticked that they started real money trading, even though that's probably not why they got targeted by Daybreak. You know, what pissed me off the most is like the negative vitriol towards secrets that I've been hearing, like for making a deal, like that they would have happily made, that they tried to make. Daybreak tried to make a deal. How's my mic's gain? I got it already like volume down to like half, and my mic's gain is still redding out here. There we go. So sorry if that's been like that for the whole video. But they reached out to Daybreak trying to make a deal. And then they get mad at Secrets for making a deal. Like, the, what's it called? The double standards, or the hypocrisy, or I guess you could use either term, right? Are mind-blowing. And then, like, calling Secrets, like, a traitor, like she rolled over on them. Like, what? Like she had some, like, secret evidence that without that evidence, THJ was getting away scot-free, but then Secret's like, no, look, actually, they're an illegal emulator server. Like, she just rolled over on them. By doing what? By making a deal for her own server? How does that in any way betray THJ? Just because she didn't, like, step up onto the firing squad platform and stand next to them to be shot down too? That makes her a traitor? The traitor is the one who started to try to profit off of the copyrighted material that we're all using very tentatively because Daybreak's tolerating us, because we're not trying to profit off of it, and we're just trying to preserve a special classic experience of the game. And then you come in and you take advantage of that tenuous permission, tacit permission. Tacit means unspoken. And you're like, oh, we can make a lot of money with this. That's the traitor, dude. In my opinion, if we're gonna start throwing around words like traitor, that's the traitor. Let me turn the gameplay sounds back up a little bit here. So we ended up having to change camps a few times. We crawled for like a good while to get to the camp, only to find that an enchanter was there. Then we went back to this other spot, and then the enchanter was leaving, so we crawled back to him. And then we're like, oh, there's a better spot, and we went there. And I'm not sure where in that cycle we are right now. Because it all looks the same. It's all these caves and stuff. Like, I know the final camp we settled on, and that was a kick-ass camp, but and that camp, it was like a little like a passage tunnel between two chambers, much like where we're at now. But each chamber had 2 of the big level 60 spawns, or one chamber had 2 level 60 spawns, and the other chamber I think had 3, with various little ones around there. But that was when the XP started to flow, because the level 60 spawns were giving me like half of a blue bubble per kill, maybe I think a little bit more than half of a blue bubble per kill. So when we started cranking through those, the XP started to flow quite nicely. But prior to that, it was pretty slow. And they were dropping shards, lucid shards. People were anxious to get those. Our whole group got them, I think. I think I got one as well. And they would drop these chitin plates that were like 9 plat a piece, and they were stackable. They could just stack them up, and they're dropping them commonly, like 2. See, that one guy has 2 right there. So it was good money, decent money camp. And the mobs were, you know, relatively easy to handle, like not resisting, like I said. Pretty straightforward mechanics. I don't think there was any healing, even though there was a priest. Charm break. And then I'm trying to pull off a stun, having trouble again. Here's another close one. I'm running for my life. Here I am screaming to Miisty. I'm like, it's over, I'm done. And then I look back and she had gotten the mob for me. And she's sweet. And by she, I mean he. But right now it's a she, because it's Morpheine. My sister. So here I am, trying to get control of my pet again, and trying to mez the ad. So I'm like, I better mez these ads. Sometimes I will mez my pet, and then I will mez ads before I recharm my pet. I'll like mez the pet, mez ad, re-mez pet, even though that's probably not necessary. I don't want to risk him mez wearing off before the charm lands and him coming to beat my ass again in the middle of a fight, you know. So I'll re-mez and then charm him. My point being, sometimes I will stop the recharming process to mess the ads and then come back to the recharming process. Oh, the volume just picked up. The volume's waves are so trippy, dude. I don't know what causes that. So it's getting louder right now. I'm turning the volume down for you guys. I'm not even sure I have footage of the final camp we went to, because when I saw that the recording was at about an hour, I turned it off, and I don't remember when that happened. But anyway, I don't have much else to say. You've seen the big mobs, and it's not much different than this. And I'm wasting valuable playtime right now, guys, so... There's Daybreak's response. Let's see what happens. Screw these people who keep talking bad about secrets, even though I think a lot of it's my fault. I think they're just doing it to spite me at this point. On Golden, if you go to Gymnastic Goldfish's last video, he like hand-drawed like a 5-year-old his thumbnail picture. And one part of the thumbnail picture shows this like machine box with a tube coming out of it. It says copium, and it shows Daybreak smoking the copium, right? And like, where did the term copium come from? If anybody's been reading any of the comments or following, Classic Everquest has been talking about the copium. It's his little catchphrase. Like THJ's got hitting the copium hard, thinking that they're gonna win this lawsuit, saying things like, "We've got Daybreak by the balls," like, or like, you know, all just copium. And so Gymnastic Goldfish is like, "No, Daybreak's the one on the copium." Yeah, basically. It's like frickin' like elementary school playground response, dude. And it's like, what? Like, are you in the same reality that I'm in? Daybreak doesn't need to cope with anything. Yeah. I almost feel bad talking about it. It's like, you know, it's like making fun of a retard or getting in a fight with like a disabled person. I know we're not supposed to say retard anymore. A mentally challenged person. Oh, Lord. Here's me casting visions of grandeur. It was funny, the other night I was in a double enchanter group, and when the other enchanter came, I'm like, "Hey, you have the epic?" And he's like, "Yep." I'm like, "Oh, maybe you can start using your epic to give the haste, because I've been using Visions of Grandeur." And then everyone in the group's like, "Visions of Grandeur is better, isn't it, than Speed of the Shitsar?" And they're like, "Yeah." So I'm like, "Alright, fine, then make me continue to cast the mana costing spell on everybody instead of using your free clicky from your fucking..." But I was like, I don't really have a leg to stand on because we have 2 enchanters, so it's like I got the mana for it, so I can't complain. That's the thing that the THJ fans don't get. It's like, sometimes the logic can be against what you want. The reality of a situation might be like, yeah, I have to concede, even though I would rather not cast that haste. That actually is the best thing in the situation. I have the mana easily because we have 2 enchanters, so there's no reason not to. But some people are like, "No, I want this," so everything that suggests that I should not get what I want is bad and wrong, and everything that says I should get what I want is good and correct. It's just like immaturity, in my opinion. Just a lot of immaturity. Anyway, here we are. I think we're finally... Well, this is another level 60 mob, but it's not the Royal Elite whatever that I was talking about. But let's see if we can watch. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, it's really small. Maybe before this guy dies, I can zoom in on it. Probably not. Let's watch it tick up. See, I got half of a blue right there. I don't know if you saw that. I got half of a blue. Gosh, now I gotta try to figure out how to get it back to original size. Oh god. I don't think I did it right. Oh god. Is there a command just like set back to... you know? Oh god. Oh god. Okay, there we go. I got it. Anyways, guys, that'll do it. Hope you guys are having fun on Quarm. I am. It's been actually more fun than I thought would be hitting the AAs, but I think I'm honestly really thinking about quitting because I'm planning on starting up another programming course to learn JavaScript. I'm just finishing up my Python course now, and I'm also going to simultaneously start a program to get certified as a teacher in the state of Florida. And even now on summer break without having to work, I feel like I'm spending too much time playing games, not doing enough of my coursework. And so like when work starts again, 55 hours a week of work, and then also having extra course. And probably actually the main reason is like it goes against my yoga practice to like have any hankering for something of this world. I'm just trying to like give up trying to like get things and enjoy things. I'm trying to put this in the most universal language possible. And and I can see how it affects my consciousness when I try to do my chanting, and I'm thinking about, ooh, after lunch I can get on my whatever and do a little whatever. I'm not present with the chanting, and I'm not free. I'm hankering. Anyway, I'm not trying to be preachy. I'm just trying to share why it's actually a distinct possibility that Sendrith's channel could be coming to an end quite soon. If not quite soon, it will be coming to an end. A year or two at max, I'm pretty sure. But it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. I might have to uninstall the game because I'm a fucking addict. I'm an addict, like just like with the Mary Jane. Like if I get it in the house, I'm like, I'm just gonna do it on Saturday nights when I play games with my friends. And then it's like each night, like kids go down, wife's in the shower, the house is quiet, it's night, and I'm like, go in the kitchen, turn on the oven fan, take a toke, and it's wonderful, you know. If it's in the house, I do it. You know what I mean? So I would love to keep Quarm installed and play occasionally for have some times where you earned it, take a break kind of thing. But I know if I do, I'm probably gonna play it more than I should. So I don't know. That's where I'm at right now, thinking about it. Let's see if I have the willpower to actually remove it. Is really the thing. I'm not sure I do yet. I'm working up towards it. The willpower is growing, but I'm not sure if it's there yet. Peace and love, everybody.